I remember when I went to London and to visit you, I
Mhm.
remember it was just the most beautiful sunny day. That was 2 years ago. That was before the pandemic.
I totally forgot about it until you just mentioned it. Actually, you did come to London, and I did bring you up to the rooftop, and we had a free coffee as well from the coffee place. Yeah, I mean the view is beautiful, right? We have central London. You get a view of everything, and I think the beauty of London is that you have very few tall buildings, and everything is sort of level two or level three or level four kind of thing. So for the office to be on 10th floor, you really get a bird's eye view of everything, which is really nice. And you got really lucky as well because London, you rarely get blue skies and sunny days, right? So that day was really nice. I think now we are really like, see, I'm being very British now because the first thing we talk about is weather.
That's what I heard. I mean, the
Yeah.
London part was like a stopover on the way back to
Mm,
Singapore. So that my business trip was in Dublin, and when I
mm,
was in Dublin, it was also equally beautiful. I was like, God, that was my first time in Europe. I was falling in love already.
yeah.
And then London, of course, I did the whole Buckingham Palace, and I did all the touristy things. But yeah,
Mhm.
thanks for taking me up to the office during that time.
No worries.
Since you arrived in the UK in London, can people you initially meet tell you're from Singapore?
No, I think it forms part of the conversation. Like from my accent, of course, I'm not British, so you can say that it's not a British accent. I'm not from the UK. But at the same time, I don't think people can guess I'm from Singapore. So the moment I actually mention to people, oh, hey, I'm from Singapore and I've been in London for like 2 years or 3 years, people get really like. Some people are like, okay, yes, you're from Singapore, and because UK is such a melting pot of people coming from Europe, from
Yeah.
Asia, from US. So you have people from all over the world. Some people like, okay, fine, you're from Singapore. It's really normal, it's common, and others will be like Singapore, but you don't look Singaporean, and that really puts me off as well. It's like, so how do Singaporeans look like? Because generally, I think a lot of people think that Singaporeans look like 70% of the population in Singapore, which is Chinese, right? And I do not fit the Chinese bill. But then I go on to explain to them, okay, Singapore is a multiracial society, just like how in UK you have Indians who are like second generation Indians, and also we have the same in Singapore as well. So yeah, I think it always forms part of the conversation whenever I talk to people like, hey, I'm from Singapore, where are you from? Are you, and you rarely find people who are actually true blue Londoners as well. You find people from like Manchester, from Liverpool, from Leicester. So everyone has their own story. People come from different parts of UK, of the world. They come to London to make a living and enjoy life in London. Yeah.
It is such a melting pot. When I was there, I remember when I was on what do you call it? The tube?
The tube, yes.
When I was in the tube, I remember I was looking around in the cabin at the different people, and I was like, "Wow, there's just so much. It really is a melting pot." I mean, Singapore, you see, Chinese, Malay, Indian, but when you're in London, you see every color, every shape and size. It's
Everything. Yeah.
the thing that struck me the most was you could see someone who probably looks maybe Eastern European, I don't know, and then they would actually speak in an Eastern European language. Maybe they would speak Russian, I don't know, but it just sounded like another European language. But then
Hmm.
suddenly when you speak to them, it's perfect British. So it's like
Yeah.
when I was in Dublin, I remember someone asked me like, "Hey, you speak English very well," and that puts me off as well. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Am I supposed to not speak?
No, I had similar experience as well. So I remember when I actually the first time I arrived to London and I actually boarded the tube, and it was really interesting because I mean you watch movies and you hear people with a British accent and you would expect that to hear that on the tube, right? But no, you would hear someone talking Vietnamese, Czech, Italian, French, and you hear everything, and it's really nice. And to your point as well, I think a lot of people have actually sort of moved to UK and they have their kids in UK, and these kids go to British schools where they actually pick up the accent as well. So I always smile whenever I walk down the street and you hear the mom speaking in like maybe the Jamaican accent or something, and the kids having like this perfect British accent, and it's really sweet as well. It's really nice, and yeah, it is a melting pot of culture, of people, of society. Everybody just coming here to UK.
Since you moved there, is there a
Mhm.
sizable Singaporean community in London?
So I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to find my Singaporean community. Actually, what I'm currently part of is actually a Facebook group called Malaysian Food Lovers. So I'm part of the Malaysian group actually, but it's fine because we all share the same food, right? Of course, there's a whole argument who does better food, Singapore or Malaysia, or even Indonesia comes into the conversation as well. But that is the group that I follow, and you'll be surprised at the number of Malaysian restaurants and Malaysian eateries that you can find in London. And I mean, back to the point that it is such a melting pot, right? And a lot of people sort of go to Singapore and they transit in Singapore and they try the food and everything. So, one thing that you would find on the menu every time you go to a Chinese restaurant is Singapore fried noodle, which I've never eaten in Singapore, but you always find it on the menu, and it's basically just noodles with seafood and meat in it. But yeah, not something that I would eat. But yes, there is. I'm not sure if there is a sizable community, but I have sort of tried finding these communities. I know a few people from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from Singapore, and I think it's our love for food that brings us together. And we do like organize like, hey, let's go to Roti King, which is a Malaysian restaurant in Singapore serving roti prata and fish
Wow.
curry and char kway teow, which is really delicious. But of course, you
Yeah.
pay a bomb for all this kind of food, but it's nice, and it's nice to sort of have gatherings with people and go out and try food that you really miss, right? Because we love our food in Singapore.
I heard there's an old Chang Key there.
Yeah, there's Old Chunky as well, and I've actually introduced Old Chunky to a few of my colleagues, and they love it. It's really nice. The thing is that it's very close to my office. It's like just 10 minutes walk from office. So sometimes I find myself just going there during lunchtime, grabbing a curry puff and having it as a snack for lunch, which is not good because it's not helping me in losing my weight. But yeah, I think being overseas for such a long time, what you always miss is family and food, right? So that is something that I always try to go back to. And yeah, Old Chunky is one of my favorite places as well.
Do you remember what day zero looked like? The first day one looked like when you arrived in London. How was that like?
Being a Singaporean, I think generally when I travel on a plane, I actually always try to wear really light, really comfortable clothes because and I know it's going to be like a 13, 14 hours journey, right? So I was dressed like it was summer, like how I would dress up in Singapore. Got off the plane, went through the airport, came out of the airport, and the moment I was out, because it was 1st of November, it was freezing. And it was 2 a.m. at night, and I opened my luggage in the middle of the street, took out some clothes, and started using it on while waiting for my taxi. And the very next day, I went to TK Maxx, which is like this huge shopping place, just to buy like the thickest jacket I could find. And it was too thick actually for London. That now it's just in storage because it's just too thick to wear it on a normal cold day. But yeah, I was really cold on day one. Um, but now I'm used to it. I love winter. I look forward to winter.
When you first arrived, it was actually you were quite lucky, right? Everything was provided for you. You were relocating, right, for a role.
Maybe let me start from the how exactly I got the how exactly I arrived in London, right? So I've been in my company for 5 years in Singapore, and then what happened was there was a position that opened up in London, and I used to work with my current manager. I used to like submit reports to her, and because in Singapore we would actually report into the UK office, and I would send reports to her, and like we would have monthly catch ups and all. So one day while we're having a monthly catch up, I mentioned to her my next plan would probably be to find something either in the UK or in the US because there's not much room to grow in the Singapore office. And she was like, hey, a position just opened up. Are you interested in applying for it? So I applied for it, flew down to UK to have the interview. This was all done in June, July. And then 3 months later, I sort of got confirmation that you're hired, and then we applied for the visa. The good thing is that because it's sort of an intercompany thing, I'm just transferring from the Singapore entity to the UK entity. Um, Everything was sort of organized and done by the HR team. So really, it was me. The only thing that I had to do was just sort of submit my passport, pack my bags, arrived in UK. I think in a sense that it has been a really smooth transition for me And I've been really lucky because my company, they have a really good team who have dealt with a lot of intercompany movement as well. And I know a few people who have moved from Singapore office to London office, and I guess because there have been multiple movements, the HR is sort of they know what exactly to expect and what exactly to provide for employees who are relocating as well, right? So yeah, it was pretty straightforward for me.
It sounds quite organized, but you did forget one thing.
Yeah.
Your
What did I
jacket.
forget?
You forgot a thick jacket.
Yes, I forgot my thick jacket. So that's one thing they didn't tell me.
On a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being the easiest,
Yeah.
immigration, is it easy in your eyes to immigrate to the United Kingdom?
I think, like I said, for me, because it was sort of a company thing, um, it was pretty straightforward. But that being said, if I did not get the work opportunity, it wouldn't have been easy at all because I think being in UK, I see a lot of. So if you are within, so now because you're Brexit, you don't really have the whole European Union anymore. But prior to that, of course, if you were resident in UK, if you were resident in EU, you could of course move to UK and find a job here. If you were an Australian, you could actually move to UK and get a job for 2 years and then move back to Australia as well. But I think for Singapore, there wasn't really anything and any setup within the government. So the only options if you wanted to move to UK was either through studies or you find a job that's actually sponsoring you, sponsoring your visa. So for me, I got a job that was sponsoring my visa, my company, and I was able to move. Um, so I think that is the hurdle they have to cross, right? Is it for education or is there going to be someone who sponsors you? So that's one part of coming into UK. I feel the other hurdle that I faced was actually being away from my family. Because for me, for all my life, I moved away at the age of 34 years old. So for 34 years of my life, I've always been living in my family. So they've always been there. My mom has always been there. I'm the only son. I have three sisters and it's me. So I'm the pampered son basically. And there's always dinner on the table. The family's always looking out for me. So moving to UK was sort of like something really new to me. It's a newfound independence for me, right? So I had to start at zero in terms of finding a place to live in, like paying electric bills, finding new friends. And I think that is the hurdle that's the biggest hurdle that you face, missing your family, finding a new group of friends to hang out with, finding a new norm in your life that you used to do back in Singapore, but now you have to find something new altogether. And how does your life fall in place now?
I think what helped is that you joined that Malaysian food group, right?
Yeah, so I think what helped me was really, I think I got really lucky in terms of before I actually moved to UK, I sort of did my research, and one Facebook, of course, helped because there's a lot of Facebook groups that sort of you join and you get initiated and you start meeting people. But what I also joined was meetup.com. So it's an app that you have people organizing like walking groups, badminton
Yeah.
groups, after work drinks group,
Huh.
expat group. Yeah. So I joined a lot of these groups, and there was a lot of pub crawl and going out and meeting new people and going out for walks and everything. And it's through these groups that you sort of make friends as well, which I've been really lucky.
When I had my stopover in London, right after I met you, I went
Yep.
for one of these pub crawls. I signed up for them by myself. I was traveling by myself. I was a solo at this point, and I remember I enjoyed everything about that experience.
Yeah.
Although it during towards I think it was the fifth pub, the people that I was with, started to meet other people, and then they got drunk or whatever, and I just
Hmm.
knew that okay, I've had it. I think I'm good. I'm gonna go back to my hotel which is near Hyde Park. Hyde Park is
Yep.
gorgeous.
Central. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. What would make you leave the UK? What would make you stay?
I think, sorry, just going back to the whole pub crawl thing, right? I think,
Hmm.
and how it helped me as well is that I think initially when I sort of joined these meetup groups and everything, I was really very apprehensive. Like, oh my God, I'm not comfortable actually going alone to these meetup groups and being all by myself. And is is someone going to talk to me? Am I just going to stand at a corner and just like look at my phone? So I think my advice to people, like, join these groups and then sort of just put yourself out there as well, right? Like, just go up to someone and introduce yourself and start talking. And I think a lot of these meetup groups, what they try to do is that they have this rule that if you are coming with someone, don't stick with that person. Instead,
Mm.
find someone new to talk to or find someone new to walk around with. So this way, you end up making a new friend as well, which I sort of try to do. But of course, a lot of times you end up making friends during that occasion, but it doesn't last because you end up losing contact or maybe just different interests and everything. So it's just a matter of sort of making sure that you maintain that contact as well.
Which makes me move to the next question. What would make you leave the UK, or what would make you stay?
Um, Frankly, at this point of time, I think arriving into UK, I sort of found my new lease of freedom, right? So having lived with my family for a very long time, now I actually have my own place where I live with one other housemate, and we get along really well, and we have a dog as well together. It belongs to him, and I claim we need to be my own dog. So, and she doesn't listen to me. So I think I have my life here, and I have sort of. I'm able to host my dinner parties and have my friends over and do game nights, and so there is a lot of thing going. So I'm not sure at this point of time I would actually leave UK. And also I think I'm trying to build my career within
Yeah,
UK as well, right? And my company is sort of it has an international headquarters here in the
yeah,
UK. So it having such a huge standing here in UK, it's easier for me to sort of rise up in terms of positions and find something much more sustainable within the UK as well. What might potentially make me leave UK is probably family, because I
yeah.
do have my parents, aging parents. I do have my sisters, and they have kids as well. So one thing that I really, really do miss is actually not seeing my nieces and nephews grow up, because I know when I actually arrived into UK 3 years ago, my sister was pregnant and she gave birth to my youngest nephew, and I've only seen him like for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then everything else has been virtual. And of course, my parents are aging as well, so
Yeah.
potentially what might make me leave is if the family situation changes. But everything else apart from that, probably I'm more inclined to remain within the UK.
And right now, as I'm speaking with Keyshawn, I could see him on our screen, and he looks like he's blooming. He looks like he's you're radiant. You're radiant. I could just you're just radiant right now.
It's the
You-
lack of sun in the UK that's making me really no.
having been there for 3 years already, what does being local mean to you?
I think it's what does being local mean to me? It's a really difficult question to answer, right? Like how I think in terms of starting a conversation, I sound like a British person because all we do is talk about the weather. So how it's gloomy, how it's sunny, how it's raining, and it's just terrible weather. So that if conversation starters makes you a local, then I definitely have that in my being local. I think another point of being local is that I have a few friends who have sort of come over to London, and I mean I was the same thing when I came to London. I wanted to see everything. I want to see this attraction. I want to go here. I want to go down to see everything. But now I've come to a point whereby it's a tourist attraction. I don't need to see it. I'd rather see something else that's not as out there that a tourist might like, but something more localized, something more local. So I guess doing more local stuff. Like I recently joined a theater company in my local area. I'm actually
You
going to.
did?
Yes,
Are you doing improv? What are you doing?
I had to do a monologue during the casting, and
What? That's amazing.
yeah, and I signed up for it, and we're actually going to start a production. Um, I don't know what cast I'm going to play. I might just be the backdrop or something. I don't know, but I think it's about being involved in all these local areas as well, right? Trying to know not just people whom I might go out drinking and everything, but trying to know people who live locally within my area as well. So I'm trying to get involved in that. And another thing about being local, I guess, is enjoying the food in the country. Like I know where to go to find the best Singaporean food, maybe, or the best fish and chips, maybe. Yeah.
Fish and
So
chips.
fish and
Yeah.
chips. Although being being a local doesn't mean you have to eat fish and chips every time. That's a touristy thing. Yeah, and I think the beauty about me being a Singaporean Indian is not just Singaporean food that entices me, right? Like UK is known for its curries, Indian food, and we have Brick Lane, we have Southall, we have Wembley, we have Tooting, and these are all pockets of Indian areas that actually provide really good food. And I think being local, I stay away from Brick Lane because it's touristic Indian food, and I go to other areas like Wembley and Tooting where you really get local, authentic Indian food at cheaper price, and you know it's going to be really good. And that's where you bring your friends. And I have like this favorite restaurants that I go to just because whenever I'm craving Indian food or Pakistani food, which is amazing. So I guess that's the beauty of me being a Singaporean Indian. It's not just Singaporean food. And because I'm exposed to Chinese food, then I know where to go for my Chinese food as well. And
Yeah.
I would never go to like greasy Chinese takeaway place because I know it's going to be terrible food that's actually catering to um, a Western palate, right? So I have my places where I would go for my Asian food instead. So it's all about food for me.
Yeah, food definitely brings people together. What would be
Yeah,
your parting advice be for someone who is moving to the UK for the first time? What's your advice?
I think make sure you pack enough clothes to cover yourself during winter. I think my parting advice is really come with an open mind, right? Like, I think it's really difficult coming to a foreign land with so many people from so many countries being here, and it's a very transient city. Like, people are always moving in and moving out, and there's a lot of changes happening. So come with an open mind. You might be alone, but there's someone else who is alone as well, and everyone is just looking for a friend, right? So I guess smile and try to meet people, and that will make your stay in London so much more better. And I think the good thing about London as well is that there's always something that's going on. There's always a festival or a market or a museum, something that's happening. So I know for the first year, I was basically keeping myself really busy over weekends, just attending all these like festivals and markets and museums or yeah, things that kept me busy. And you end up meeting people as well, which is really, really nice.
Thank you so much for joining today's episode of Are You Local, Kishan?
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.